gross violation of the core principles of American foreign policy, dating back more than 2 centuries, and not anymore. All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines, and the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Monroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Won't happen.
So, in 1823, the U.S. declared the Western Hemisphere closed to future European colonization and interference through the Monroe Doctrine, stating that the Americas, which is South America, Central America, North America, the Americas, and Europe were separate spheres, and any European meddling in the Americas would be seen as a hostile act against the U.S. This landmark policy warned European powers against establishing new colonies or controlling independent nations in the Americas. Okay? Now, what did we see happening in Venezuela? What have we seen happening in places like Cuba, in places like Colombia and Mexico? Russia, China, and Iran, America's adversaries, were setting up shop. And this completely violates the Monroe Doctrine. Key points of the Monroe Doctrine: no future colonization. The American continents are not open for further colonization by European powers. Separate spheres. The political systems of the Old World, Europe, and the New World, Americas, are fundamentally different and must remain separate. Non-interference. The U.S. would not interfere in European, now this is key, would not interfere in European wars. Now, what would this take away? NATO and all of our money going in to Ukraine and Israel and all, funding these foreign wars. If Trump brings back the Monroe Doctrine as it's written, it would eliminate all of that. We would be here and they would be there. If they want to fight a war, that's on them. And that's how it should be. Would not interfere in European wars or existing colonies, but would view any attempts to extend European influence in the Americas as a threat. Now that is very, very symbolic. And when he brought up the Monroe Doctrine in his press conference, and then when Alex pointed it out, that's when I started doing a little bit of research on it. And I'm telling you, this makes all the sense in the world of why we've seen what happened in Venezuela, the Panama Canal even. I mean, you can even date it back to there. I think that's when it started. It's just nobody's seen it. It's just once Venezuela happened, that's when the pieces started fitting together. Significance. It established the U.S. as a protector of the hemisphere. So that means all like Mexico and Scheinbaum and all these people talking smack about what Trump did. I think you would want to have a good relationship with your neighbors. Am I right? Although, at the time, it was more of a symbolic statement than a show of military force. It became a cornerstone, like I just stated. It was the most misunderstood and brilliant piece of national security strategy ever. Cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy by shaping its relationship with Latin America for centuries. And what has Trump done? He's really focused on borders and boundaries. In 1823, the United States, they declared that the Western Hemisphere would not be open to foreign empires. I mean, it's pretty clear. That doctrine, that doctrine literally shaped American strategy for generations. Then, in the late 20th century, it quietly faded and was replaced by what? Globalism. And the idea borders mattered less than systems. Trump's national security strategy reverses that assumption. It turned it upside down, operationally reviving the logic of the Monroe Doctrine. And the lamestream media didn't report it this way because they didn't want you to know it was this simple. That the Western Hemisphere is a vital U.S. security zone. And hostile regional powers will not be allowed to establish strategic positions here, ever. And that's what they were doing. They were establishing strategic positions so that way they had, what's the word I'm looking for? They had like a bargaining chip. Venezuela is now where that enforcement became visible. And under Maduro, Venezuela was no longer treated as this frail, dysfunctional state. It was framed as a platform for Russian security cooperation, Iranian financial and intelligence networks, and Chinese economic leverage infrastructure, control, and transnational criminal organizations operating with state protection. As we've seen. We've seen all of this. It's all out there. If you look into it, you'll see it. And under the Monroe Doctrine, that all crosses a red line. It doesn't require logical alignment. It requires strategic denial. No hostile power centered near U.S. borders. So, Monroe being captured is hemispherical enforcement. And once that happened, as you've seen, every major power reacted not emotionally, but strategically. So, like I stated, these countries and these powers, they didn't react emotionally, they reacted strategically. With China, Beijing saw Venezuela as precedent and looks at one question: what behavior is now acceptable? It saw the U.S. acting decisively where it geographically mattered the most. Now, let's hope that this doesn't give China the bright idea to go after Taiwan. A lot of people are saying that it can. It can happen. But this shows that with Monroe, if the U.S. draws a boundary, they will enforce it, and raises the cost of miscalculation, making that move very difficult. With Russia, Moscow's concern wasn't at the initial outrage, but the loss of leverage because Venezuela has been a part of Russia's asymmetric pressure. By removing that foothold, the Kremlin is forced to reassess if the world is returning to spheres of influence. Now, here's the question. If the U.S. enforces the Monroe Doctrine, Does that legitimize Russia using its own regional doctrine, meaning Ukraine, or going back to the way the Soviet Union operated, things like that? Who knows? But it does mean deterrence hinges on clarity. If red lines are defined and enforced, escalation becomes much more risky. And if it vague, it's more tempting. That's the gamble Trump took. And it was a huge gamble that he took. With Iran, Tehran's power depends on distance, proxy networks, and plausible deniability. A Monroe-style America dismantling these foreign platforms is uncomfortable for Iran, and that's why we've been seeing them saber-rattling so much lately, because their influence only works if the host that they're trying to sway this influence on, if they accept it. And I think that acceptance just blew up in Venezuela when Maduro was captured. So the question is, did Trump just open Pandora's box? No. The box was already opened when the globalists decided geography and boundaries no longer mattered. Trump didn't open it. He acknowledged it existed by enforcing hemispherical boundaries. And he signaled that power is regional and enforcement matters. But this is a double-edged sword. On one end, it's a more honest way, and it keeps things in line. But the other, it's dangerous, because once the Monroe Doctrine is fully out again, everyone else starts dusting off their own versions that have been, all their own versions that have been tucked away. And that's the trade-off that could shape the future of global politics. That's what happened in Venezuela. It wasn't about Maduro. Now, Maduro did commit crimes. And I think with them capturing Maduro and with him facing trial, I think they're going to offer him a plea agreement. And I think the plea is going to be him telling the Trump administration who all was involved, what happened with the election systems, where all the bodies are buried. And that's important to remember. The question everyone should ask, do you want America dominating in this hemisphere? Or do you want the Chicoms, China, Russia, and Iran? This action and the 18 plus trillion on the table just put the U.S. at an even more powerful position to have everyone pull out of China and move their money here, which we've already started seeing happen since Trump took office. But now with this, it'll flood back because everyone will see the U.S. as a dominant power again. And that's how we win. That's how we get out of the debt the globalists put us in, so we collapse. And that was their plan. If Kamala would have gotten in, the country would have been in a third world state. It would have been a hellhole. And that was their plan, to completely collapse the current system and do their whole Build Back Better. That was what it was all about. So this isn't about, this isn't just about the resources. Yeah, sure, the resources are a plus, and the 18 trillion secure, it's 18, think about that, folks. $18 trillion with Venezuela. This will secure the dollar in the future, because if the dollar crashes, we will see a Great Depression style event on steroids. But this is also about enforcing the Monroe Doctrine and establishing hemispherical dominance. exposing the election fraud being run out of Venezuela, shutting off the money laundering and the drug and human trafficking, exposing all the politicians on the payroll. And that's what I was telling you about the plea deal. If he takes a plea deal and starts singing, it's going to expose what happened with all the elections, who's all on the payroll, and it cuts off this mothership command. Like Venezuela was like the mothership, and it exercises American will and America making the decisions, not the globalists, not the UN, not BlackRock. And I think that's where Trump, he needs to be very, very careful, because they have spent decades building this globalist system and going away from this Monroe Doctrine, this style Monroe Doctrine. Trump needs to be very, very careful, because these people are backed into a corner, and once he starts going after stuff like this, that's when you better start worrying if he's going to be JFK'd, because they will stop at nothing to keep power, keep control, and keep us under their thumb. That's their goal. And today was the thing with Maduro, where he was in court, and I'm pretty sure he said he pleaded not guilty. It looks like he had a lot of pressure from China, Russia, Cuba, and Iran. It's like I was just stating to you. He's walking around with a smile, like a weight is lifted off his shoulders. I don't know. I think there's a lot more. Like I was saying, this wasn't just about Maduro. This was about reestablishing the Monroe Doctrine. Maduro declared himself innocent before the New York judge and says he is a decent man. The accusations against him are a scandal on top of all the evidence against him, and yet he still believes he's innocent. What do you all think? Do you think that with what we've seen with the Panama Canal and what we just seen with Venezuela, do you think that this is Trump reestablishing the Monroe Doctrine? Because that's what I think. And a lot of people are missing it. Nobody's really seeing that angle of it. You got all these people, they're all, everybody's all hating about it, but I mean, I think that is telling to the fact that who's on the payroll. And if the Monroe Doctrine becomes reestablished, what do you think that means? Do you think that Russia could dust off their own version? All these other countries, what do you think happens? I want to hear from you. But anything to get us out of the globalist control and globalist empire, I'm down for it. That's what I think. And that was the report that I had for you today. Oh, wow. So check this out. After Nick Shirley exposed the Somali fraud in Minnesota, Tim Walz has dropped out of the 2026 Minnesota governor's race amid a multi-billion-dollar fraud scandal in his state. Wow, let's take a look at this.
Who went to major breaking political news out of St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tim Walz will not seek re-election as governor, and what a fall from grace this has been for him. You might recall in the spring of 2023, he pushed through several progressive ideas to the state legislature that caught the attention of Barack Obama, who went to Twitter to give his endorsement for the programs, which eventually caught the attention of people like Kamala Harris, who chose him to be her running mate as the vice president. Introduced in Chicago at the convention in August of last year, a debate that was an absolute disaster with J.D. Vance at one point called himself a knucklehead. After reportedly billions of dollars have been stolen from taxpayers by way of the state of Minnesota, Tim Walz says he will not seek a third term. What a remarkable 2 years in the national spotlight has been for him, Dana.
And
this is pretty telling. It shows that he's guilty. He knows he's guilty. And he's making a run. I think he's getting out while he can. Nicolas Maduro just pleaded not guilty to drug and weapons charges that would carry up to life in prison. Maduro is cooked. See, I think, like I was stating earlier, I think he's going to do the plea deal. And with that plea deal, I think it's going to take the whole system down. But once you start getting word of that, that's when people need to start watching, because the deep state and the globalists, they could Epstein him to keep anything from getting out. That dude knows a lot. He knows, he was running it. He was the bag man. He literally knows where all the bodies are buried for the deep state. He knows where everything is. So, yeah. I don't think Trump opened Pandora's box, like I said. The box was already open when the globalists decided that the boundaries and geography didn't matter. Come get me, I'm waiting. Colombian president taunts U.S. after Trump puts Latin American countries on notice for pushing drugs. I'm covering. So now the Colombian president is talking smack, just like Maduro did. And what happened to Maduro? Everybody's seen what happened to Maduro. Oh, this guy here is a rhino, man. Cuba, like I was telling you, Cuba is already preparing and all this. Cuba prepared their 2K-12 Soviet air defense systems after Trump threatened the island nation. You know, to be honest, it wouldn't take shit for the U.S. to go right into Cuba. It wouldn't take nothing for the U.S. to launch some Tomahawks, hit those damn battery systems there, and end it. See, they don't got money to feed their people, but they got money to practice launching these missiles out. You know, what's even more crazy is you got all these liberals in the streets protesting, saying release Maduro and Trump's a war criminal and war crimes and all this, but yet the Venezuelans and people that used to live in Venezuela are happy about it. They're cheering. Like, look at this. This is what happened to the day of Maduro getting captured. This was some of the scenes coming out of Venezuela. But yet you got liberals in the streets of America that don't know nothing. They know nothing about the history of Venezuela and what those people went through for almost 30 years. Liberty at last. Exiles across the globe celebrate Maduro's capture following a U.S. military operation with Venezuelans in Miami. Santiago and Madrid chanting freedom after decades under authoritarian rule. So, yeah. All these people. Look at all these people. Look at this. But yet, you got liberals are all against it. Everybody's against it. All these Democrat politicians, they're all against it. And then you got people talking, saying, well, why didn't he have congressional approval? This was illegal. Trump didn't need a congressional approval. As I stated in my other live stream with the 1973 War Powers Resolution, he didn't need congressional approval. And with him doing it the way he did it, there were no leaks. And that's why the operation went off with such success and no U.S. military were killed. None. I think there was one injury. I think that was it. But it wasn't leaked out. And Congress, as you know, is full of leaks. Like, it's a leaking sieve. It's a swamp. But that's what I have for you today. If you can, share everything out. Please subscribe, like the video, share it all out. And until next time, keep on prepping, stay safe. God bless. Patriot Independence out.